Love that music. Welcome to this episode of season 3 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline, Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which is the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham. So let's do a weather check. Sweyn, how's the weather where you are this week?
It's cool. It's overcast. I'm trying not to believe there's rain in the air, but there is.
Yeah, here in Birmingham, we've got some blue skies this week, which for a change, which is very nice. But yeah, there looks kind of like a shadow on the ground, and it's cold. You know, it's indoors. It's colder than it was. So hopefully we haven't missed our summer, but I hope we'll get some more warm weather. Apparently in Ireland, it's going to be a heat wave this week. So
all right,
yeah. So
lucky Ireland.
That. Yeah. So there we go. Let's cover some dates. Do you want to lead off?
Yes, indeed. So we've got, first of all, that June is Pride Month, of course. Now, I'm talking and sharing at the same time, which may be beyond me in this very short term. Just let me see if I can find the right screen first. It is indeed Pride Month this month, and I have a screen here to prove it. And here it comes. There we are. Mm-hmm. It's a month-long celebration that recognises the LGBTQ+ community and their contributions to society. And it's a time to acknowledge the challenges faced by this community or these communities, and to stand in solidarity with their fight for equality, acceptance, and human rights. It's a joyful, colourful display of love, unity, and resilience with events and activities that promote inclusivity, educate the public, and celebrate the diversity of sexual orientations and gender identities. And getting involved can take a number of different forms. There are pride parades and events to attend, local listings. You'll find them everywhere across the world, never mind the country. You can educate yourself and others. You know, why not follow that link and actually read up about some stuff that's related to LGBTQ+ issues. You can support LGBTQ+ organizations, maybe donating to charities and organizations, or volunteering. We'll come back to volunteering, or simply advocate for equal rights. All of these rights are human rights, so use your voice to advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and equality in your community and beyond. So that is Pride Week.
Yes, I was very happy to take part in the Birmingham Pride Parade, which took place at the end of May. It was Bank Holiday May this year, and I was in the group from Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, their EDI group, yeah, and it was very, very well received. For marching through Birmingham, we kind of expected some kind of playful joshing and stuff from people, but no, we got lots of applause and lots of fans in the crowd, so that was really nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
Did they have a pride celebration on Orkney? Is there?
Yes, it doesn't happen every year, but there is a group that puts something on some years, if not most years. I haven't heard about this year yet, but I'm sure it'll be coming.
Great.
They also have we have to acknowledge the UK's most northerly pride is unfortunately in Shetland, but hey, we can only do our best.
Excellent.
But Orkney won the junior inter-county this weekend, so we don't care about it. We don't care about it. We're happy this week.
Good.
Do you want to take the next story?
Yeah, moving on to the one. Yeah, the next one is this week. This week we're celebrating Volunteers Week. It's from Thursday 1st of June to Wednesday the 7th of June. Volunteers Week 2023, and this takes place at this time every year, and it's a chance to recognise the fantastic contribution volunteers make to our communities and to say thank you. It's a week supported and celebrated by small grassroots organisations as well as larger household name charities, and together they run hundreds of activities across the UK which showcase and celebrate volunteers and their contribution to our communities. It's a time to celebrate and inspire, highlighting that diversity is our strength, showing there's more than one way to volunteer, and encouraging people to be the change that we want to see. As we know, volunteers are always active at the heart of every UK community, so we're encouraging people to celebrate and recognise their efforts and their contribution to local communities, which contribution has never been more important. Every year, hundreds of events take place to celebrate Volunteers Week and the huge range of ways in which volunteers give their time. So there'll be lots of activities up and down the country, from volunteer recruitment events and open days to celebration and recognition events. Volunteering is important because it's shown to improve volunteers' well-being too, not just helping others. It's human nature to feel good after helping someone out. And so if you're interested in volunteering, here's some information about how to get started and some volunteering stories to inspire you. 16.3 million people volunteered through a group, club or organization in 2020-21. Most people have formally volunteered at some point in their lives, dipping in and out of involvement over time. Volunteering patterns changed substantially during the pandemic. I'm sure lots of people got involved in volunteering, Sweyn, who had never volunteered before. I know there were lots of COVID support groups springing up all over the place and all other kinds of groups. So it was great to see that kind of activity complementing the existing activity that had been happening all along. Almost 1 in 5, 17% of people reported volunteering at least once a month, about 9.2 million people. And less visible is informal volunteering, which includes a wider range of activities, including unpaid help for someone who is not a relative. Again, in the years 2020-21, 54% of the population, 29.4%, 24 million, volunteered informally at least once a year, and 33%, 17.9 million, did so at least once a month. And I know myself, Sweyn, lots of faith groups, for example, there's volunteering happening all over the place. That isn't counted, so I'm sure the numbers are higher. And of course, since COVID, I'm sure the numbers have increased again. So it'll be interesting to see, more recent figures, and especially I'd like to see figures for especially during COVID, what happened and what changed for people, during that time, and if that change has, continued. We'd like to note one of the projects that we are closely connected to, Northfield Community Partnership, that I work for. They had a victory, or a kind of a win, if you like, during Volunteers Week. Anne Saunders, who's a volunteer with the Digital Literacy Project at Northfield Community Partnership, has been chosen as one of the 4 winners of the National Volunteers Week Digital Unite Amazon vouchers, which was a way of them recognising the wonderful work that volunteers do. And Anne was nominated for a Champions Award for her continued support of others, including helping a citizen for whom English was not their first language, resourcefully using pictures to aid the communication between them. So congratulations, Anne. I know she's delighted to have won. Anne, in the picture, on your screen there, Anne is the lady on the right hand side with the blonde hair, and the lady on the left is Cheryl Hughes, who's one of the workers at the Digital Literacy Project. So they're all delighted to celebrate Anne's recognition for Anne. She's a wonderful volunteer.
That's great, and it's nice to see that recognition. I believe everyone is a volunteer in one way or another, and I think that there's benefit though in actually calling it what it is, not just a bit of helping out, not just this or that, not just something that you do anyway. Because the more you think about what you can do and how you can contribute, the more opportunities there are, and there certainly are a huge variety of volunteering opportunities. I mean, it's just amazing. Absolutely,
and as we said earlier in this piece, it is good for your mental health. There's no doubt about it. Like it's great to help somebody, and that is a practical result of volunteering. But the rewards for yourself as a volunteer are immense, and I've seen people thrive. In volunteering roles. A lot of the people who work for Northfield Community Partnership started as volunteers and came on to do paid work. So, there's always the chance.
And skills you develop when you're volunteering are still skills.
Yeah,
and you can then possibly use them in some paid work or in some other voluntary context.
Yeah,
it's all grist to the experience mill, hasn't it?
Absolutely. So if anybody actually out there is interested in volunteering, becoming a digital champion, for example, we're very keen to promote that sort of volunteering. Please do contact us. We can put you in touch with other organizations. Digital Unite is one of them, who do run digital champions programs. They have contacts up and down the country. As I say, other programs are available. Please do let us know if we can help in that way. We'd love to connect you up with opportunities. Okay, should we go on to the next one?
Let's do that.
Do you want to, or shall I?
Why don't you take it away? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is World Refugee Day coming up on the 20th of June, and we actually have on screen the Wikipedia page for World Refugee Day. But we also got a background for stories, facts about what refugee women face. And the story says that with the war in Ukraine waging on, the number of people seeking refuge outside of their home countries or displaced within is higher than ever, and it's women and girls who are suffering the most. Ethnic tensions, political strife, famine, climate change and terrorism continue to uproot lives. And this story says that as inequality gaps widen and displacement increases, it's up to us to invest in providing the opportunities and services to support women refugees during this time and as they rebuild. And it goes on to give some facts about the situation for refugee women. 1 in 5 women refugees experience sexual violence. Women and children make up most of the people forcibly displaced by renewed conflict in Syria. 50% of refugees, internally displaced or stateless populations are women and girls. Refugees bear the brunt of COVID-19's impact on health and economic insecurity. And refugee women could generate and contribute $1.4 trillion to the annual global GDP, and that's if they were allowed to work in the countries that they seek refuge in. So it is, I think it's important for countries where people are seeking refuge and asylum to recognize the benefits that giving asylum can contribute to a country. It's been proven that asylum seekers and refugees can add greatly to the countries that they end up in. So
quite a sobering article, actually, in all sorts of different ways, not least the waste of human endeavor that there is when you treat refugees in your own society harshly or as some kind of burden or extra thing.
Yeah.
When not necessarily need to be like that at all.
No, not at all. And we hope that changes, and we hope we contribute to that change. Okay, moving on to events. To tomorrow, Tuesday the 6th of June, AbilityNet, one of the helper organizations for people who are disabled and want help with their digital life. There's a free AbilityNet webinar on the benefits of volunteering. So it combines two of our favorite topics, volunteering and disabled, digital inclusion.
I've registered to attend this one.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So and someone called Jamie is going to be sharing his volunteering experiences during this free lunch and learn session tomorrow at 1 o'clock, where guests from Capgemini UK and AbilityNet will be sharing information on how volunteering can benefit you or your organization. And we're promising to cover Jamie's volunteering activities later in the program. So can you tell us a bit more about that, Sweyn?
Jamie's a friend of mine. He's the partner of a very long-standing friend of mine, and he's a great guy. He lives in Caithness, which is a little bit south of Orkney, and he has a background in IT and has been doing loads of volunteering in terms of digital champion sort of stuff for a while. But there's a brilliant story about a specific instance of who he helped, which we'll cover a bit later on. And also, I want to try and make sure that Jamie gets onto the program as a guest some week because he'd be great.
Okay, that sounds really good. Yes, we look forward to that then. Okay, and another event coming up at the end of the month is the West Midlands Funders Network Conference on Learning from the Pandemic. That's on the 27th of June at the Midlands Arts Centre. And in the blurb, it says the unprecedented period between 2020 and 2022 during the global pandemic resulted in swift and effective action from volunteers, funders, the voluntary community, social enterprise sector, and wider stakeholders in response to the crisis. As the pandemic years lengthened, the response changed from emergency to recovery. Funders forged ways of delivering money and resources to communities quickly through emergency grant making, swifter and more flexible processes, and collaboration between funders and local organizations. Short-term funding programs have developed to help communities to the extent of recovery. As the West Midlands continues to emerge from the pandemic, the implications of looming recession, a cost of living crisis, racial inequalities, the climate emergency, and rising socioeconomic inequalities continue to have a profound impact on the lives of those living and working in our region. What does all of this mean for the future of funding, and where can long-term focused funding make a significant impact in the years ahead? So that sounds like a really must-attend for funders and voluntary sector colleagues in the West Midlands. It is an event I'll be attending myself, as I'm a trustee still of the West Midlands Funders Network. And as usual, a data and digital strand will be running through it because obviously it's useful to have to see the data that shows what the picture looks like, and see where digital can help with alleviating some of the pressures.
All sorts of things happened suddenly and quickly and very beneficially through the pandemic. Just goes to show, just focusing on the short term for a second, just goes to show what can be done if something appears to be a priority, funders or government or whoever. But the most interesting thing of all that strikes me about that event is this business of trying to migrate ourselves away from constantly bidding for tiny bits of short-term funding into some kind of longer-term strategic effectiveness. It's a tough nut. Thousands of people have struggled with it for many years, but it's great to see events actually explicitly mentioning it in their kind of main blurb. I think that's really important.
Yeah, great. So looking forward to that, and we'll report back on that in the future show. So moving on to our guest or topic, kind of a unguest, shall we say? Sweyn, we're going to hear from you about some changes that have been happening in your work and life.
Yeah, well, to put it in a nutshell, I've gone freelance. So I've worked for about 29 years, 35 years altogether, but 29 of them mostly happily for the Orkney Islands Council. And recently I decided to cut myself loose and go freelance. So in the short term, to be perfectly honest, I'll be focusing on my studies for the MSc that I'm doing through the summer. That'll be my focus. I'm a bit of a digital jack of all trades. I never seem to specialize in anything, so I expect to be operating across quite a wide spectrum. In fact, I'm not really ruling anything out, except gardening, because I don't like gardening. Even if it is digital gardening, I'm not that interested. Anything else though. And the other thing in the short term, it kind of feeds in quite neatly to this week's earlier themes. I've taken on a couple of additional voluntary roles. So I already volunteer for the Science Festival, the Orkney International Science Festival, which I've mentioned many times on here, and which we all think is a brilliant thing. And also less time consuming, but still quite important, I think, is the Greener Orkney Community Fridge, which collects food that's going out of date from supermarkets and makes it available free to anybody who can use it, as a kind of food waste avoidance scheme. But the main new one is I've become the IT advisor to the organising committee for the 2025 International Island Games being held here in Orkney.
That sounds fantastic.
Yes. So we're expecting up to 2,000, I think, competitors and officials. I need to get better at the statistics for this event, because I should have them at my fingertips. I'm kind of half remembering some of this. So about 2,000 competitors and officials from 23 groups of islands across the world.
Wow.
Which
across
I
the
can
world.
Yes, I can show you where they are.
Exciting.
And total of about 4,000 individuals visiting Orkney that week, we think.
Wow, look at
There's
this.
all the flags. So Ireland, Alderney, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Falkland Islands, Faroe Islands, Froya, Gibraltar, Gotland, Gozo, Greenland, Guernsey, Hitra, I don't know whether that's Norwegian anyway, Isle of Man, Isle of Wight, Jersey, Minorca, Orkney, hooray, Saaremaa, Sark, Shetland, okay, hooray as well, St Helena, I should say, the Western Isles, and Inismon. So there you go.
Go back to the map.
Yep.
Wow, so it's Europe and America, the Americas.
Yep, more or less.
Fantastic.
Like to see Tasmania get involved, but not so far.
Yeah.
And would New Zealand count? I think the rules say you can't be a sovereign nation. You've got to be a subdivision of a sovereign nation to take part.
I see. 23 member islands. Wow. This is fantastic.
It kind of molds what they actually do in the week. It's every 2 years. So this year's games is happening next month in Guernsey. So obviously a lot of the committee are going off to Guernsey to see how it all works for Orkney. Orkney becomes the official host at the closing ceremony, a bit like the we keep saying ridiculously a bit like the Olympic Games, but it is a bit like the Olympic Games. It's just much smaller.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Orkney, each island host group decides which sports will feature, because not all islands can host all sports necessarily. Orkney's been quite ambitious, I think. We've decided to have 13 different sports, and that includes sailing and also football. Now, football is a brave choice for any island group to put on because it nearly doubles the number of participants just because there are 11 people in a team and 4 substitutes. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, it'll be all systems go. Well, first of all, find all the systems, then fund all the systems, and then it'll be all systems go.
So what kind of things will your job entail?
Well, what I've agreed to do in the first instance is to liaise with previous islands in getting a bunch of basically procurement documentation sorted out, so that we know what we're buying, or we know what we need, or we know what we're begging to be given, or however it's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, these islands are vastly different if you think about it. I mean, Guernsey is more or less a nation state in itself, all 64,000 residents. Orkney is very much a local authority within Scotland, and a tiny one at that. So some of the approaches will have to be different, but the basic structure of it will be very similar and recognizable, I hope.
So you'll have to look at Wi-Fi and broadband and all these kind of things that people will expect to have as a matter of course, won't they?
I noticed that Guernsey have upgraded all sorts of venues to fiber for this reason.
Brilliant. Yes.
Luckily, there's a games administration system that that the International Association pays for, and each host then uses. So it'll not be a question of trying to work out how to, let 2 people per heat progress to a final round. And that's all kind of somebody will have to do that, but it's a system that people who know about sport can operate, not IT people.
Yeah.
So and yes, for anybody who knows me, it's hilarious. I have avoided sport in all forms my entire life, except for being a football dad. So it is very, very, very amusing that I'm involved in the island games in any capacity whatsoever.
And will you be recruiting a team around you?
It's hard to say. It's not even. I'm not even sure yet how much of the IT requirement will be bought in, and therefore come with its own staff. There'll surely be some element of volunteering, even if it's just to help people attached to the Wi-Fi at every site. It's completely blank slate. Although the slate will not be as blank as it is now when I've spoken to the IT director for the Guernsey Games, for example.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to bother him too much this month, since it's next month that their games actually happen. But I'm sure he's actually doing his second stint, because he also was the IT guy in Guernsey when they had the games back in 2003.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody knows of any sponsors, either headline sponsors for the games as a whole, or indeed sponsors of the various IT elements that might be needed for an island games, please get in touch, because it'll be very, very, very welcome.
So is there a website that people can have a look at?
There is.
As things develop?
It's a bit limited at the moment, and I'll just type it in now. It's a great question. Great question, Pauline. Why did I not have this ready? Share screen. Yeah, it's a lovely picture of part of Orkney. Oh no, there's rolling pictures on it. That's nice. There we are. Orkney2025.com.
Nice.
And
so what's on the page at the moment?
It's more or less just a holding page saying we are doing this honestly.
Yeah.
So there's an appeal for people to show interest in volunteering just at this early stage. There's a mission statement, which I should also learn, I suppose. And then there's a list of sports. So those are the sports
so let's
that are going
archery,
to happen.
athletics, badminton, bowls, cycling, football, golf, gymnastics, sailing, shooting events, swimming, squash, and triathlon. Wow.
Yep.
That's wonderful. I'm thinking I can be in Orkney in 2025.
Well, here you go. Yes.
That looks fantastic. You'll be a bit busy, but
But maybe not. Maybe I'll have outsourced everything and I'll just in the director's box or something. I don't know. I don't expect so.
Excellent. So when we have guests on, we usually ask them about their early life and technology and stuff like that. So what,
Oh,
just
crikey.
casting your mind back, how
Ah,
did you get
yes.
involved in all this
Um,
effort? What's your early days look like?
I suppose in IT terms, it was when I was it's when I was a child. My father was a almost maniacal amateur IT dabbler with his BBC Micro and then his Acorn computer. But really, I first probably got interested in the concept of IT and how it can be useful, as opposed to how to play with it. When I was a student, when I was a master's student at Sheffield, I found myself doing a course which aimed to produce librarians and information scientists of various sorts. And I was on the kind of science wing of that. And it was just at the time when software on PCs, which were quite new in 1987, 8. So it was kind of the second or third generation only of PCs. And it was just amazing what you could actually do. No more typing. You can overtype. You can add columns of figures up in spreadsheets. It was amazing. But I noticed that this hugely disparate group of people who were on the course had very different approaches and very different barriers to using it effectively. Those who'd played with computers on the BBC Micro and had tried to program them, like me, just kind of got on with it. But there was a lot of absolute, it's hard to remember how little awareness there was of what the basic computer functions that we all now take more or less for granted in one form or another. There was just a huge learning curve for society as a whole. And that's how I really got involved. And then I went on not to be a librarian of any sort, because I don't think I'd have been any good at that, as it all turned out. I went into computer IT support with the University of Sussex for a few years before a job opened up here in Orkney, by which time, having left aged 18, never to return, because who would ever want to return to Orkney? Goodness me, find me somewhere interesting and exciting. 10 years later, here I am back, quite happy to be back. And I've been in various guises working with council in IT or project management or similar roles for all of that time until now.
So what had changed in Orkney in the 10 years, digitally in the 10 years since you were away from the island, do you think?
Not very much in those 10 years, because those were the 10 years that really everybody was really just getting going. There was no such thing as broadband. I suppose dial-up internet had happened as a thing between 89 and between 1984 that I went to university, and I came back in 1994. So there wasn't really a great deal of digital stuff had happened in that time, certainly not for individuals at home. What was changing was at work, as it were. Those people who had been using enormous mainframe computers were moving away from those down to server-based computers, Windows, and well, it wasn't Windows, but it's computers, as my cup says, that you can throw out of a window. Never trust a computer that you can't throw out of a window. So rather than your computer being a room full of, like in a James Bond film with the tape drives going and all that stuff, rather than that, your computer was a box which you put in the corner and connected things to. That was the big change really that happened in those 10 years. But then since then, also, it's incredible. I mean, dial-up's gone, broadband is now completely assumed to be how you do it. Bandwidths have gone up. Facebook, I mean, who imagined you'd be sharing intimate details of what you were doing with your friends or the whole of the world if you're not careful? And I think the main recent difference, and I think the pandemic turbocharged this, was we're using it now, Zoom, Teams, video, interactive video. I've always said, being an islander and being often the one that can't quite get to the time that something's happening in, interactive video, where I see what you're doing and I can interrupt you and ask you a question, is amazing. And the fact that it's now available free to everyone that has a decent network connection, let's not forget those who don't,
that has a decent device. Let's not forget those who don't. That has the confidence to actually connect to a Zoom call over there. And let's not forget those who haven't got that confidence. But in principle, with a bit of effort, we can make this available now literally to everyone. And to me, that's just absolutely transformed the world. And it's the interactive nature. There was a time when there was lots of high broadband speeds, but really all you could do would be download films or download games or downloads. They're just kind of sitting there being fed stuff. But especially since the pandemic, and a bit before with Skype and all that sort of stuff, the proper kind of, as I would see it, interactive two-way thing, you can, well, as we'll see, you can deliver all sorts of services remotely if you put your mind to it. Anyway, I could go on about this for at least a whole hour. So maybe we should move on.
Well, I just wanted to.
My voice is a bit weird. I wonder why that is. There we go. That's the best I can do, I think. If it gets really bad, I can this plan B to let me know, because I can't hear it.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you one thing, which was about when you met John Popham, because obviously he started this show, and I think it's always good to remind ourselves, back that John made a significant difference to both of us and to the internet, and how people in the fields that we move in use the internet interactively today. Can you remember when you first met him and the impression he made on you?
I can. I'm trying to think, did I ever actually meet him? And I actually can't even remember. I don't think so. I don't think I did.
Right.
But through my efforts to get involved in digital stuff, like I think it was Blue Lights Camp in about 2012, a bit about. He was trying to do live streaming from that, and I was trying to connect it, and I did. And once I understood that it was literally just him and a camera, I adjusted my expectations, and it was good. And we had lots of interactions by email, by whatever video calling mechanism they were using, probably Google Meet, and just seemed to be suggesting all the right things, and not just in digital either. And he was kind of community developer. He described himself as a digital storyteller, and the stories he told were of how things could be better if we got ourselves organized and did things with the users of services at the center and involved people in their own lives. And the biggest thing I think I took from him was how we all, every single one of us, has this need to chat. We need to have time in our lives when we can simply chat with other people about anything or nothing. And I think that, so that the live streaming was really the thing, because I was determined that I was going to get going with this live streaming thing. This is long before Facebook Live or anything like that, which is now, again, kind of with a little bit of thought, you can do almost anything with Facebook Live now without any special equipment, except maybe you can use a phone, and it only get 80% of what you need. But John was using much more cumbersome tools than that, struggling with the fact that Wi-Fi speeds were dreadful in certain venues, trying to make a difference. And the three main areas that we worked in, which he really did make an impact in, were housing. He did a lot of work with housing associations to help them involve their tenants in both in the organisation of the associations, but also in the associations enabling those people to use digital as they were, signposting all sorts of other services. The other area, of course, was Wi-Fi in hospitals. In England, John was on the main project steering group for that, having agitated for many, many years about the benefits to patients and to staff of being able to have access to your stuff and your family. And then obviously you wanted to come and visit you, and when COVID people couldn't visit, and kind of attending relatives by Zoom was kind of almost complained about. But if that hadn't been there, then it would have been an awful lot worse because there just
Yeah.
wouldn't have been any contact.
Yeah.
And the third thing was his heroic efforts to promote rural broadband. And I remember a particular project where he went around Yorkshire interviewing people, typically rather kind of sad, and I don't mean it in a pejorative way, but genuinely unhappy teenagers who found that their school was more and more expecting them to do homework using the internet at home or whatever. But when they got home after their 40-minute bus drive into a Yorkshire village somewhere, what was the internet? The internet didn't exist there unless, you know, in any meaningful way that was convenient. So yeah, he's a big hero of mine. I must admit, when I still miss him. I'm pretty sure I never actually met him. Just beautiful.
Yeah. And let's not forget Twitter and Twicket and all the things he did.
Twitter.
He made such a powerful effect on people's lives there too. So, yeah. Well, we hope he's giving them hell up in heaven and running social media surgery still because they're still desperately needed. Okay, we will cover a few stories we picked up in the last week.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being such an excellent guest.
One of the standard questions is, did you know John Poppin? That's a great question. Make sure we keep asking that.
It's always good to remind ourselves where we came from. Okay. So we picked up a couple of stories in the last week, and we'll cover a few of those before we finish the show. And this is one which which our friend Casper Kennerdale from Clear Community Web wrote on his LinkedIn page, and we are hoping to have Casper on the show in a couple of weeks to speak more about this. But he basically says the title is How Communities Are Tackling the Digital Divide, and he says, you know, with the world around us shifting further online each day, digital skills are no longer an asset but a vital skill. From online banking to job applications to booking doctor's appointment, to staying in touch with friends and family, being able to use digital devices is an essential part of our everyday lives. But for 14 million people in the UK who have the lowest digital capability, digital transformation means being further locked out, not just a matter of physical access. The widening digital skills gap is leaving millions of people unable to access vital services and support. Research by Age UK, published earlier this year, found nearly a third of London councils do not offer a way to apply for housing benefit or council tax rebates without internet access. We actually covered that story in a previous programme. So this February, Parliament's Communications and Digital Committee launched an inquiry into digital exclusion and the cost of living crisis, which showed the government is slowly starting to recognise the importance of digital inclusion in combating poverty. And initiatives on Stockport and Lewis in East Sussex are featured. And so is Clear Community Web, Casper's organisation. It's a social enterprise in South London, facilitated by Casper, and offers classes, workshops and individual support to help people feel more confident and comfortable with technology. Casper says our mobile phone boot camps are our most successful program. We get over 30 people attending to come and practice with our mobile phones and discuss issues around scams, online safety and data sharing. And Casper is the managing director at Clear Community Web. Since the start of the cost of living crisis, demand for their digital skills training support has shot up, with over 500 people getting help so far this year. This is no surprise. Research by YouGov and Development Economics found that missing out on online deals can cost families £286 per month, pushing them further into financial hardship. Casper says the government is slowly beginning to get digital inclusion on the agenda, but are still lagging behind community efforts. Support at the grassroots is often more trusted, especially by marginalised groups. And with no end to the cost of living crisis in sight, they could make all the difference. Well, I can't agree more with Casper's view. This was an article on Big Issue, according to what was on your screen just there, Sweyn.
That's right, yes. £286 per month if you don't get online deals.
That's a serious amount.
Staggering amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we
I
could
love
do
the
something
picture. I love the picture in that article. I think it's maybe Casper's group of the people, yes it is, of the people sitting with their phones, helping each other and concentrating. And I so often feel like that when I'm looking at this.
Yeah, I recognise that picture. Yeah.
Oh, why does this work?
Yeah, exactly.
But the more you do it, and particularly if you've got somebody next to you who can chat it over with, even if they can't really help.
Well, yeah, that's the great thing about it. Yeah, and not feeling alone and isolated and stupid. People feel stupid and it's ridiculous. They don't have technical engineering degrees, most of them. So, okay, So come on, tech companies, we want you to do better as well, and that's another part of my work. So anyway, another article from our friends at AbilityNet is about how remote volunteers can provide expert tech guidance. And this is an article that says that newly published author Stephen Liska contacted AbilityNet in 2022 as he was looking for help with working on documents on his laptop. So AbilityNet volunteer Jamie Robson was drafted in to provide online remote support to Stephen, who was based in Colwyn Bay in North Wales. Unfortunately, at the time, AbilityNet didn't have any volunteers nearby to be able to pay Stephen a home visit. So a convenient date was arranged, says Jamie, and time to have a remote support session during which I talked to Stephen through installing TeamViewer, which is our preferred tool for assisting clients remotely. This worked like a charm, and since Stephen had granted permission, meant that I could see what was on Stephen's screen and demonstrate things as well. Although Stephen had done some writing in years gone by, he'd never actually written a book and was keen to discover the useful features within Word that would help with his tasks. I was fortunate enough to find AbilityNet with an internet search, Stephen said. And then the rewards of remote volunteering. Stephen's wife, that was on the screen just there with Stephen, is a stroke survivor, and he was writing a book about their shared experiences, challenges, and victories following her stroke in 2011. Jamie and Stephen had several remote sessions, during which Jamie also helped Stephen with other aspects of computer usage. Stephen said it's easy enough to find people who will fix a computer, but it's almost impossible to find people who will instruct you how to use one, especially when it comes to specialist programs. So with Jamie's help explaining how the technology worked, Stephen was able to complete the work on his book, How Life Can Change at a Stroke, which is now available to buy online. And Jamie says he was delighted to hear from Stephen. The book was published early this year, and was honestly privileged to be a small part in the creative process which allowed Stephen to complete what he set out to do. Jamie himself has been providing remote support with AbilityNet for many years, including through the pandemic, and one request for support particularly sticks in Jamie's mind. He says it was a gentleman in his 90s in Edinburgh who'd been unable to see his first grandchild because of lockdown. We had a remote session and managed to get Skype working, which then enabled him to see his grandchild for the very first time. It was wonderful to be able to do that for him. So remote support is a vital part of what AbilityNet do. While it's not suitable for every request they receive, it does allow them to respond quickly to many requests and also help clients who unfortunately don't have volunteers within travelling distance, and helps to keep the carbon footprint to a minimum as well, since no travelling is involved. Well, that's a really nice story, again, about a digital champion, digital volunteer who can help somebody do something that, those of us who have some skill take for granted. But when you don't have the skills, you feel stupid. And then trying to get the help in a language that maybe, unusual to you and, vocabulary you're not maybe used to, I think can be challenging as well. So well done, AbilityNet and the volunteers for making that happen.
But Jamie is providing this support from this really Christmas, which, except if you live elsewhere in Christmas or maybe Auckland, it's a very long way from most of the rest of the United Kingdom. I think remote support, as it says, it's not suitable for every request, but it is actually probably underused even after the pandemic, I think. I mean, there is the slight downside of remote support being provided by people who doesn't necessarily share what it's like to live in your community where you live. So there can be issues there, I suppose. But for quite a lot of kind of basic how-to stuff, after people have got to a certain level of being able to log in and do website. I mean, for example, the service user there, Stephen, he found AbilityNet using a web search. So he did it himself. He went on and searched for help he might be able to get, and he noticed that AbilityNet was likely to be useful to him. So once you get to that point, but as he says, I don't know, I'm having to learn some of the more abstruse features of Word as well, because to write essays and dissertations and things for an MSc, you've got to do references and reference what you've read and a whole kind of worms and stuff. So if you need help with that sort of thing, then it's perfectly possible to get it online. It's perfectly possible to deliver that help. Tell you what, who support the students that are in Auckland, but also support the students in Malaysia. Their library service there runs endless Teams calls, how to do this and that, the next thing. And one of the ones that I attended last week was how to use the features of Word to make your dissertation references less painful. And that's almost exactly the same kind of help as Jamie was providing to obviously the university's got its structures in place to provide all of this remotely, and it doesn't matter whether you're in Edinburgh or whether you're at home with your parents or whether you're a remote student who's dialing in for all your lectures or whether you happen to live in Auckland, you can still join the Teams call and get it. You have to be able to open Word, you have to be able to understand what's going on, but to a certain level, and everybody needs assistance like this in various different things, it doesn't matter that you're not sitting in the same room. I mean, we've never sat in the same room presenting this program. We will one day. We will one day.
We will.
But, you know.
Yeah. It works.
It's a frame of mind that some people just get and some people need encouragement to get.
Yeah. Great. Well, good luck to AbilityNet. Good luck to Jamie. Is this the Jamie we've talked about coming on the program?
Yes, Jamie Robson.
Okay. Man of many talents.
If we can have him and maybe even Stephen and his wife with Linda.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
If we have them all on, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see how we get on.
Yeah, it's always good when we can have stories and then we kind of talk to the people behind the story. So yeah, great stuff. Okay, so moving on, we found a story from Mobile UK, who launched a new infographic to showcase how mobile operators are supporting digital inclusion. Digital inclusion is about ensuring the benefits of connectivity and digital technologies are available to everyone. And during periods of rapid change and unprecedented digital progress, to retain the maximum societal benefit, it's important to identify those who are at risk of being left behind and provide them with the tools they need to thrive, just in case anybody wasn't clear on the definition of digital inclusion. And as well as needing access to equipment and connectivity, some digitally excluded people may require additional support to develop skills, confidence, and motivation to use this technology. This creates additional layers of social exclusion and can exacerbate already pertinent socioeconomic problems. The inability to get online, simple as it may sound, but can often be life-changing for many people, as we've just mentioned really with the previous story. So championing digital inclusion is therefore a priority for mobile operators in the UK. And to outline some of the work undertaken by our member operators, they say we've released our digital inclusion infographic. So there's another link there, Sweyn, to this infographic, which I think you've got. Yeah. It says there's no silver bullet to solving the UK's gaping digital. Is this the same story? Sorry, I don't know if I've moved on to the next story. No, yeah. So you just scroll down the infographic there. So it gives various connectivity goals. What they're aiming for. EEBT has 1 million customers on social or discounted tariffs, and its unique stay connected data enables 500,000 customers to send and receive messages, check emails, news services like online maps, even when their monthly data allowances run out. So there's very good information there about what the different operators are offering. Vodafone has an Everyone Connected program, which has already provided free connectivity to 1 million people and will help a total of 4 million people cross the digital divide by the end of 2025. The service 3 aims to set up 1 million new digital connections to the Samaritans vital support services by 2024. And Virgin Media O2 is committed to reducing data poverty by connecting 6 million digitally excluded people by the end of 2025. Well, they're all really excellent goals, aren't they? If they can be reached and achieved.
They sure are, and it is great to see the mobile companies and their trade organization kind of putting some focus on this, because there has been criticism of the networks really quite recently, I think by the Digital Poverty Alliance, but I don't want to say that for definite because I can't remember, about some of them not really making it very easy to access their social tariffs and so on like that. And maybe this is a bit of a reaction to that criticism, and if so, good for them. Yeah.
I mean, the graphic, and we'll have it on the YouTube page after the program goes out, also goes on to illustrate information about data poverty, that these four operators are providing social tariffs, that they offer their staff paid volunteer days to help the vulnerable in the community, They talk about the shared rural network that they have. They committed to extend 4G coverage to 95% of the UK.
I have to interject that they need to include Shetland in that map, if not Orkney as well. Oh dear.
Okay, we must have a word to them about that then. They help to they contribute to the National Data Bank by offering free SIMs to people who are eligible across the UK, and through the network of 1,000 national data bank hubs that link to the Good Things Foundation online network. You have to be a member of that to be part of that, but that's not easy. That's not difficult to be part of. They give data about the digital divide, about businesses and so on, providing people with essential digital skills, information about online safety, so keeping people safe and confident online, which is something that's essential. So they're encouraging people, if you are struggling with your bills for being online, to contact your operator directly. So it sounds like they're trying to offer, support where they can. Being conscious that if you don't have access to these things, you're basically cut off from having a life of any sort, never mind a good life. So yeah, I think it's good that they're being encouraged to do
great.
that.
It's a great infographic, and what we need to make sure is that the companies and everybody else understands what's on offer and signposts people who are eligible or people who could benefit from it to those things, so that they get take up that they need. On a lighter note, I noticed that also the Isle of Wight and the Scilly Isles were missing from that map. I wonder if the mobile operators as a group might like to atone for their sins of leaving out islands across the UK by, say, sponsoring the Island Games in Orkney 2025.
It seems like a perfect opportunity, really, doesn't it, to alleviate their corporate guilt?
Yes.
Should they feel it?
Yes, we're all here for that.
We'll encourage them to do that.
Yes, we're all here for that.
Okay, moving on. Another organization, CIH, has written a piece about the digital divide, saying there's no silver bullet to solving the UK's gaping digital divide, but there are solutions. Daunting as it may be, it requires commitment from almost every arm of local and national government, from education to planning to construction skills. Obviously, some solutions will take significant time and investment, others can be actioned almost immediately. What they all have in common is the need for partnership working and commitment from all in the housing sector and elsewhere. So the CIH commissioned the Cambridge Centre for Housing and Planning Research to investigate, resulting in the Digital Exclusion and Cost of Living Crisis Report, which takes a deeper look at the impact of digital exclusion and its ill effects on people's ability to create and grasp opportunities, or in some cases stay on top of their bills, access the support to which they're entitled, or simply connect to the outside world. And at the end of this piece, they're calling on the housing sector to come together and make broadband a key feature of our community developments, a leading item on politicians' agendas, and part of the conversations around ending poverty, inequality, and most importantly, creating communities where people can thrive. Well, that's a rallying cry, if ever I heard one, for the
sector,
housing sector. Yeah,
as I was saying earlier, sometimes in partnership with people like John Popham, as was an early actor in this space, and it's great to see them building on that early work and really making it count. Yeah,
good. Well done to them, and we applaud them and encourage them to keep going. The next item is a podcast from Microsoft Chief Accessibility Officer Jenny Lay-Flurrie on why inclusivity benefits everyone. So we'll provide a link to that in the again on the YouTube page. And this is Microsoft's Work Lab podcast, in which hosts Elise Hugh and Mary Melton have conversations with economists, technologists, and researchers who explore the data and insights into how and why work is changing. So this is a conversation, as we said, about why inclusivity benefits everyone. So there's three big takeaways from the conversation. Firstly, there's a bias from business leaders to believe that they don't work with any disabled people, so they're helping disabled people in this case. You absolutely do, Lay-Flurrie says. It's whether or not they actually feel safe enough to identify themselves as such. 7 years ago, when she hired her team, 50% of members disclosed they had a disability during the interview process. A year later, that number was 95%. So significant increase because the safety was created, obviously. Secondly, another key takeaway is be mindful of the ROI trap, the returns on investment, as Lay-Flurrie puts it, referring to a deprioritization of an accessible feature based on the belief that it only serves the disability population. For example, the audiobooks that many people enjoy today were originally designed for blind people.
Mhm.
So, as I've said before, ramps that help wheelchair users also help other people who, for whom mobility is an issue, people in buggies, people who are on crutches temporarily, so it's, help one, you help more than one. And the final big takeaway is that Lay-Flurrie believes that AI has enormous potential to create a more accessible world, but we have to make sure that we're doing it in a grounded way, she says, and make sure that the data we lean on is disability representative. And so the kind of end of that takeaway is right now we're going through a hot and fast innovation curve, and we're still learning every day. We must have somebody on about AI at some stage, Sweyn. I think we need to kind of see how that's impacting on digital inclusion.
Yes.
I think it could impact greatly, actually. So, but yeah, well done to the Microsoft Chief Accessibility Officer for this podcast, and we commend it to other people to listen to.
I have a sticker on my computer that I don't know where I got, but I found it when having a clear out recently, which basically says accessibility is not tech for good, it's tech for all.
Yeah,
I think that kind of sums up some of what that story was saying. And yes, the ramps helping everybody. I very much appreciate ramps, because when I go traveling, I tend to have a trundly suitcase behind me, and it helps enormously just to be able to get up a ramp.
Yeah,
than wrestling with a 6-inch carb or something.
Yeah,
so it really does. It really is. What you put into accessibility, you will get out again.
Yeah,
in different ways.
In spades. Yep. Okay, 2 more stories before we close today. The second last one is takeaways from Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum 2023. It was a conversation with Wikimedians, and 2023, they say, marked another first for the Wikimedia Foundation's presence at the Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum. It's an annual forum hosted by Paradigm Initiative, where digital policies in Africa are debated and shaped, and participants and attendees forge partnerships for action. And this year it was hosted in Nairobi, Kenya, under the theme of building a sustainable internet future for all. So it's quite a long article, but we wanted to include it because Wikipedia and Wikimedia, is a open source tools that are available to all. So if they're taking part in this event, then we want other people to know that they're doing something good and that other people should know about it. So we will include again a link in the YouTube, on the YouTube page. And finally, and this one is one we may well come back to as well. This is one I found out over the weekend, which I thought was brilliant. The data dashboard, which was built using data from the Internet Digital Equity Survey conducted by Connect Humanity in 2022 in partnership with TechSoup Global Network, which is the network that supports the group that I used to run, the Tech for Good West Midlands group, and I'm hoping
You're in too many groups, Pauline.
I am.
You can't even remember what they're called.
Trying to start another one for Birmingham, but anyway, this survey was completed by over 7,500 participants from civil society organisations in 136 countries, collectively serving over 190 million people, answering questions about the barriers that they and the communities they serve face when it comes to digital equity. And this dashboard allows comparison of responses across countries and regions under 5 elements of the framework. 1 is infrastructure and access, 2 is affordability, 3 is digital skills, 4 is policy, and 5 is content. And you probably have it on screen. Yeah, you have now. And it's just, I compared the UK to the rest of Europe yesterday when I was looking at the data. On screen is just the kind of the bullet points about the different elements. So infrastructure and access you've got on the screen at the moment. For those who find the internet unreliable, there are many reasons why, and these are some of the reasons are given. If you scroll down a bit more, Sweyn, to the next kind of bullet point, affordability, catalyzing new business and financing models to reduce the cost of connecting. These, the equipment is expensive to maintain, and like so many people find this expensive. 49% of 19% of community service organizations find these things expensive, and 49% of people served find all these things expensive. So that's one of the things I really liked about this, Sweyn, because they looked at the people providing the help, but also the people being helped, and sort of, trying to do this together, because often people who are giving the help don't also have the resources, and then the people receiving the help can't benefit from it because they don't have the means by which
Yeah.
to benefit. So it's, you know,
It's a question of matching
those
up
two-
what
yeah,
you're offered as to what can
exactly.
be accepted. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
yeah.
bridging that gap again. So I think
And
we
there are
will come
three
back to
more.
that
There are
one.
3 more of those. So yes, we'll have to come back to this.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good article. So we hope those resources are useful to other people who are interested in this ecosystem as we are. We hope you find something useful in those presentations this week. Thanks very much for joining us. We hope you have a good week and see you again next week. Thanks
Thank
and
you.
bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.